Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well and welcome to tonight's bonus. Before we jump into tonight's bonus upload, a couple links. As you all know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost you a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. And folks, they definitely do matter. Now everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with tonight's bonus. Shall we? Today's first encounter happened about an hour and 10 minutes away from my house, just south of me. In mid-July, I was sitting at my computer at night, playing a computer game with the television on behind me. I was watching my sister's dog while they were on vacation. She was lying in the other room. At around 7 or 8, I heard this howl in the distance, very far behind my house. This is not uncommon, since there is heavily wooded area where there are hills, and bears often live in the area. A call from a mother to the cub is not unheard of, especially in evening hours. I made sure the dog was in the house, then went back and shut the back door. I wasn't scared of anything getting in, but the dog often will run through the screen door to get the honking geese passing by, a neighbor's dog, or even a rabbit if it sees one in the backyard. I heard the same distant howl a few minutes later and dismissed it. I went back and played some video games for about another hour. Then I heard the sound again, but it chilled me more so than I can ever explain in words to another. The noise was not a bear, nor could any bear ever make such a sound. Bears make sound which are deep and even grunting. However, this was one that can only be described as a screaming howl. What shook me so much was the sound, literally, was just outside my window, perhaps 20 feet or so. And it was so loud I literally almost fell out of my seat. It shocked me so badly. In the summer, my windows are open, but to discourage bugs, I keep the blinds closed. My window is perhaps 8 feet off the ground on the other side of the house, just to give a feel of the area. Immediately, my heart was racing, and it hurt. I knew for a fact all I had to do was draw the blinds open and I could see what it was. Since it was still light out, yet I could not. I was paralyzed for the first and only time of my life. I waited, expecting to hear the sound again, yet did not. Finally, after about a minute, I went out of the room and went into a more central room of the house, trying to get away from the sound. Yet, I would be damned if I would go near the screen door. In my parents' room, I found my sister's dog, and this animal, who is usually will bark and growl at anything. Lying in the corner, curled up, and she had defecated all over the floor. As soon as she saw me, it was whimpering. I closed the door and myself sat down near her and waited for perhaps 10 minutes. After that, I finally gathered enough courage to go and shut and lock all the doors. I didn't hear or see anything after. The dog refused to come out of the room the entire night. I'm 23-year-old, 6 feet tall and 260. Yet, I was just plain terrified. I had no idea what it was, and I still don't. I did not tell my parents or relatives because they'll simply say it was a bear. and perhaps it was, but I've never heard a bear nor any other animal make such a noise before. Today's second encounter comes to us from New Hampshire. This incident happened to my wife and myself on May 27th of 2016. I was woken up at 3 in the morning by this screaming distress sound that was coming from our outside open bedroom window at the rear of our house. After the sound happened again, I woke my wife up, wondering if our dog was left outside. Then she heard the noise a couple of times. I got up and went to our rear sliding door in the kitchen, where we kept our dog kennel. As I left the room, my wife was startled and heard a repetitive howl knocking sound from the outside of our bedroom window, which I didn't hear because I was between the rooms. As I got to our dog's kennel, I startled our dog awake. I then turned on the rear outdoor light and porch light. When I opened the slider, I heard a lot of commotion at our tree line, which is about 150 feet from the house. My first thought was a pack of coyote. After listening for a few seconds, the noises escalated, and the trees began to shake in a 3 to 5 foot spread area of our tree line. It made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I shut the slider and went and got my shotgun. I loaded it and went back out to the back deck, which is about 6 to 8 feet off the ground. At this time, my wife came out of the kitchen to listen out the window. As I was on the back deck, the noises continued. It was as if whatever was out there had no fear of me. I felt like there were multiple sets of eyes on me. As I stood there, I could hear breaking limbs, trees shaking, and what sounded like a creature with serious power. My 12 gauge felt like nothing, and I knew I better get back in the house. The noises carried on for about a half an hour more. I decided to shut off the rear deck light because our house was dark inside, and it felt like they could see us. When I walked over to shut it off, my wife, who was standing at the slider with the door partly open about a foot, heard a heavy sound of something running toward us. She slammed the slider shut and jumped back. I've never seen fear like this come over my wife. I then quickly opened the slider with my shotgun in hand and heard an aggressive, deep grunting sound that went off 3 times quickly. It was right beside the deck, and it felt like it was in my face. I slammed the slider, my wife ran to our baby's room, and I could hear what sounded like a group of 3 to 5 creatures slowly heading back into the woods. I've been in those woods my whole life, and I know this area and wildlife very well. I've never encountered anything like this. We didn't see anything. The following day, we noticed some bushes pushed over at the edge of our deck and several freshly broken branches around the tree line. Today's third encounter comes to us from California. In the summer of '91, I took my son and nephew fishing with me to the North Lake outside of Bishop, California. We arrived late Sunday and set up camp. Following morning, we started fishing with absolutely no luck, but the mosquitoes were eating us alive. So I decided to go down to the local McDonald's. That afternoon, we did all right, catching a few decent-sized trout. Mistakenly, I cleaned the fish at our campsite and put them in the ice chest as proof that we did have some luck. We went to bed proud of our catches, and we were tired from the sun and the lack of oxygen. Due to the high altitude, needless to say, we fell asleep pretty quick. I don't know if it was the dead silence or the heavy footsteps that woke me, but I knew someone or something stopped just outside of our tent. My nephew asked what it was, and I quickly hushed him. I stood up and was able to peek outside to see if it was a bear. I'd like to mention before I continue that I've had run-ins with bears and mountain lions. I worked around them with great caution and a bit scared of what may happen if they attack. Fortunately, I never had the feeling that I was in a life-or-death situation. What I saw that night made me feel I had to leave the mountain as soon as it was safe. The angle I had only allowed me to see the legs. The legs were muscular and human-like. Its buttocks would have been at my mid-abdomen. I'm 5'6". Yes, I'm short. But this was Shaquille O'Neal level, hairy, muscular legs and just huge. I've been afraid before, but never paranoid. I was frozen and shocked. I shined my flashlight on its legs very briefly through the tent mesh. Then I turned the light away, pointing it at my chest. It stood there for about a minute or two, but it felt like 5. It moved on, and I listened for a while. As soon as I felt safe, I packed my nephew and son into the car and grabbed our bags and some other stuff, but the fear was overwhelming. I left the tent and some other camping gear. We made our way home 2 days early. My son never realized what happened, only to wake up at home Tuesday morning. Everyone was asking why we were home early. I never said why, other than that the kids were getting bored. My nephew brought it up 10 years later, and when I told him, I was mocked, so I kept it to myself. Today's third encounter comes to us from Alabama. Me and my wife and 2 daughters were going to see my parents who live in Claiborne County, Alabama. And my daughter, who had not long gotten her driver's license, was driving, and I was up front in the passenger seat, and my wife and other daughter were in the back. We had just gotten off the interstate and had turned down the long back road that takes us to my parents' house. And as we came over a hill and something huge and black darted across the road on 2 feet and into the woods about 50 yards ahead. My daughter said, "What was that?" I was like, "I have no idea." It was massive and very wide across the shoulders. Its head seemed to just sit atop of its huge shoulders. Like this thing was taller and wider than anything I had ever seen and moved at an unreal speed. My daughter didn't really get a good look at it, as she had seen something just big zip across the road, but I saw it long enough to see it was standing up on 2 feet and really big. I guess what stands out to me the most is how wide its upper body was, big enough to know that no other animal could even come close, especially around here, and its height, I'm just guessing, seemed to be easily 8 feet tall. I still can't believe that something like this actually exists. I mean, how can something that big not be seen? You hear stories, but to see something like this, you can't explain, and you know most people will not believe you. But now I'm a true believer. Today's 5th encounter comes to us from Texas. Hello everyone, my name is Ricardo. On Friday, October 23rd, 2020, my wife and I were seeing if there was a restaurant in Texas open so we could go have lunch. It was around 1 in the afternoon. The name of the restaurant is called the Catfish Cafe, located just west of Weatherford, Texas on Interstate 20, right next to the Brazos River. There's only one worker in the restaurant, and he told us the restaurant would not open until 4, so my wife and I decided to drive around the countryside in that area and kill some time until 4. Immediately, just west of the restaurant, about 50 yards or so, is a bridge that goes across the Brazos. We headed across it and stopped in the center of the bridge to look at the river scenery when we spotted a huge dark figure on the river wading in the water around ankle deep. This thing was about a quarter of a mile north of the bridge. At first, we thought it was a man that was just kicking the water, chasing a possible fish or something, but looking at the object a little closer, we knew that this was no man because it was dark, tall, and hairy. We believed that it was a Bigfoot looking for its meal. We stayed there on the bridge for a good 5 minutes, as no cars were coming. We drove around for a while after that and came back to the restaurant about 3:45, stopping again on that bridge to see if we could see that thing was still there. It wasn't, and we just got our food and went back home to our house in Weatherford. You guys are the first people that ever told about this incident. Today's 6th encounter comes to us from Ohio. 10 of us had rented a cabin in the woods. On Thursday, October 29th, till November 1st. It was located in Logan, Ohio, part of the Hocking Hill area. Everything was normal till Friday. We all started smelling this nasty smell. We couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Didn't smell it in the cabin, just outside. Late Friday night after midnight, 2 people were on the deck and everyone else was in bed. They started hearing loud noises like branches breaking. Felt like they were being watched. Sometimes it sounded like something was being thrown. They thought it was one of us trying to prank them. Then came a loud bang near them, so they ran into the cabin from the upper deck. The one guy came into my room and told me what was going on, so me and another girl went down into the kitchen area, started looking out of the windows. I turned all the lights out, and within minutes, one of the girls yelled, "There it is!" I went to the kitchen window, and in the field right in front of me, there it stood, a large black figure walking on 2 legs toward the cabin. We all started yelling, "What is that?" It then all of a sudden turned and went back to the woods it came out of, like it had heard us. We then got everyone up and went out to the deck and heard these weird howling sounds that none of us had ever heard. And the noises like branches breaking. Then we heard a loud sound in the front of the cabin just to the left. We all moved to the front and heard walking and branches breaking and seeing if something was moving around. Today's 7th encounter comes to us from California. In late high school, 1990, a group of my friends drove out to Livermore, California, down Arroyo Road. The time of year was probably spring, maybe summer. I don't recall it being cold. At the end of Arroyo at that time, or off to a turnoff, was a pumping station for a local reservoir. We parked in the street. The reason for this trip was to trek to the ruins of a former mental hospital. Unclear if there was a more direct road, but Arroyo Road was desolate and rarely used at that point. We thought it would be fun and had attempted this journey before, but were never successful. I was driving one of the 2 cars. It was after dark. The other driver and I got out of the cars and turned toward the hillside behind us. I was shining a flashlight along the hill and almost immediately noticed a tall, furry brown creature walking on 2 legs from left to right at about 30 to 40 feet. This was, about 40 feet away. The other driver was next to me and said, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" Couldn't finish the sentence before, Yeah, I am. I continued to shine the light on the creature as it moved from the right, and then started up the hillside and disappeared. As the others are getting out of the car, the other driver and I quickly discussed that we wouldn't mention this to the others, as it would only scare them. We gathered our flashlights and proceeded up the hill behind the cars. I had been part of 3 or 4 previous trips to this location, and had never been scared before like I was this night. Instead of shining the light ahead, I was constantly shining it behind and around us looking for the creature. I was and am still convinced that we saw some sort of cryptid that night. So is the other driver. We later shared with the group who dismissed our sighting as a bear or something else. This was not a bear. It was tall, dark brown, and clearly walking on 2 legs. While we had about 10 or so people in our party, only the other driver and I witnessed the creature. Neither of us had anything to drink or any other substances. Today's 8th encounter comes to us from Virginia. My 2 boys' ex-husband and I were heading back to our hotel from dinner in Williamsburg on the evening of October 22nd, 2020. I took a left turn onto East Rochambeau Drive, which parallels Interstate 64. It was a clear night, dark, and around 8:55. I know that it was after 8:50 and before 9, because I was hoping to get back to watch the 9 o'clock debate. My son made a comment about my speed, and I pointed out 55-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. As we passed it, I rounded the corner and saw a brief, small glitter, which led my eye to see movement. I quickly could tell that it was an upright bipedal figure, as it walked quick from right to left. I immediately could see that it walked like a human, but it was extremely broad and huge. The arms and upper thighs were so big that I could see the outlines of muscle. The figure was blacker than black, almost looking like an enormous black shadow, but solid. My lights only revealed blackness, no clothes, just one solid figure. I could see from the middle of the face and most of the legs. I saw no features as it was walking, only showing its side to me. It moved smoothly and quickly. I could not see its feet or the top of its head. It happened so quickly that I didn't have time to say, "Look," to my family who was with me. As soon as it stepped off the side, I immediately said, "What is that?" I was curious to where it had went, and as I passed the area, I could see that it went into the woods. There were no cars, people, or anyone else on the road. There's one house a little further down the road and had their porch light on. I keep trying to understand the distance from my car to the area it walked into the woods, trying to understand the height. What I saw was just so huge. No way it could have been a human. It was huge, tall, and broad. Again, it was black, so black that my lights did not reveal details, which was odd. My children were completely freaked out, so I didn't stop. I've returned twice to that area to look at the road and the surroundings. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick little bonus. Just something to get us through the night a little easier. I hope your night's going well. And we are coming up on Saturday Nightmares, live from New York with me and you. 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow night. I cannot wait. It truly is the pinnacle of my week. I look forward to it. I get sad on Sunday morning and hyped up on Friday. Anyway, guys, thank you for supporting the channel. Your support is what makes this channel special and what continues to make it grow and go. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, our pets, our family, and friends. These creatures are real, they're out there, and they are dangerous. Share this information with the people you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for answers, and God bless.